28th Planning Commission order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairwoman Amanda Jackson Denmark.
Here.
Vice Chairman Charlie Whitmore.
Here.
Commissioner Michael Brock.
Here.
Commissioner Rich Delcor.
Here.
David Law. Commissioner Jim Flynn.
Here.
Commissioner Jason Stewart.
Here.
Notice regarding adjournment. The Planning Commission will not hear new items after 9:30 p.m. unless authorized by a majority vote of the commission members present. Items which have not been heard before 9:30 may be continued to the next regular meeting or a special meeting date as determined by the commission members. May I have an adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
May I have an adoption of the minutes from January the 24th?
So moved.
Have a second? Any further?
Oh, somebody did? Second. There you go.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. You have to wait for this.
I did have to wait, but I could hear you saying it, so. We have any public comments? Okay, no old business, so we'll get on to the new business, the Unified Development Ordinance Amendments. It's a public hearing, so I need to call first for public hearing.
Call for public comment for public hearing.
I will call for public comment for public hearing on the Unified Development Ordinance once. Call for public comment twice. Last call for public comment. Okay, no public comment. Charlotte.
Thank you. The amendments tonight, excuse me, I'm having a little trouble hearing, so hearing myself, sorry. Anyway, the Unified Development Ordinance amendments tonight relate to stormwater, and they come from the Watershed Management Department. So there are amendments that are proposed to Section 313, Development and Surety, and Stormwater Surety. Section 314, Certificate of Construction Compliance, and Section 510, Stormwater. And I just want to give you a bit of a high-level review on the proposed amendment. So the first one is to distinguish between the Development Surety and Stormwater Surety. Watershed Management Department wanted more specificity with regard to the Stormwater Surety. So we have some amendments to that section, and I can bring up the text amendment as well if you'd like to go through that. And everything's a little different here, sorry. The Certificate of Construction Compliance, as you know, we included the temporary Certificate of Construction Compliance last year among various amendments. Since we've implemented it, there have been some issues relating to the temporary Certificate of Construction Compliance. As it relates right now, it's written to apply to all types of development, including single family and commercial, which includes multifamily. The 75% completion requirement, however, is difficult for commercial development, and my understanding is that it relates somehow to timing and financing. So we want to make an amendment to distinguish between single family and commercial and multifamily. So temporary, as proposed, would apply only to single family. It would allow the developer to move forward with a building permit if that temporary certificate was issued. That would not be the case for commercial development. They could move forward without the temporary certificate. They could obtain a building permit and then get a final certificate of compliance. And Kevin, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
The issue that was faced was that when the commercial development was coming in, before they could even get their building permit, we were saying that you had to have 75% bond in place for a lot of your landscaping improvements. It was a astronomical amount of money that people are going to have to put up for bonds or letter of credits, realizing that all of these improvements are required at the very end. So before they can get their certificate of occupancy on these commercial developments, all of that's going to be put in place. So from a checks and balances standpoint, we have that final hold before we issue the CO of getting completed for their sites. So when we made those changes, it was an unintended consequence where we realized that when we lumped it in there, that we were causing more problems than we were actually fixing. So we're releasing that back out and then focusing on that the commercial and multifamily can still move forward, and then the residential will still have to do their necessary bonds for their phases. So, does that help?
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. And then finally, the last amendments that are proposed are to the stormwater section. This particular section relates to requirements for both new development and redevelopment. And as it's written right now, there was some overlap that needed to be adjusted. So we're breaking out the requirements for new development and redevelopment. And again, I can go over those text amendments. And I've done that very quickly. Are there any questions? Would you like for me to bring up the text amendments?
Any more clarification?
All righty. Regarding text amendment criteria, they do comply with the review criteria required by the Unified Development Ordinance. The Planning Commission action tonight could be to approve the staff recommendation or to make an amendment to the recommendation or to deny. If you choose to move forward with the amendments tonight, they will go to the Town Council for a first reading on March 12th and then for a second reading and public hearing on April 9th. Here is the proposed motion if you choose to approve the staff recommendation.
Questions, comments? You're good. Okay. Well, then, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend approval of the amendment to the Town of Bluffton Code Ordinances, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, as submitted by town staff.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Charlotte, that was fantastic. All right, we are going to move to the next item, which is Cornerstone Church Campus rezoning request. This is a workshop, so there's no action. And Dan's presenting this one.
Thank you. This is Cornerstone Church Campus Zoning Map Amendment Workshop. And so this is a non-action item, so you won't be making any action tonight. It's just a workshop. What I'm going to do is read real quickly exactly how it reads in the UDO. It's in section 322, Common Application Review Procedures. Item F is Planning Commission Workshop. And it's described as Planning Commission workshops are intended to be the first official presentation of a proposed project to provide the public with information and a forum to initially review the application and identify applicable application review criteria. Meetings are encouraged as opportunities for informal, non-binding communication between the applicant and neighboring property owners and Planning Commission members who may be affected by the application. And our applicants are here tonight. The request is, the applicant is Nathan Sturry of Sturry Engineering on behalf of the property owners of Cornerstone Church of Bluffton and Lolly and Mole, or Mole, I'm not sure, is requesting approval of an amendment to the Town of Bluffton zoning map. Two subject parcels, total 43.31 acres. The parcels are contiguous and located south of May River Road, approximately 600 feet east of Stardust Lane. And the applicant is requesting an amendment to the official zoning map for the Town of Bluffton to rezone the two parcels from planned unit development to a mix of agricultural AG and rural mixed-use RMU zoning designations. This is the location of the subject property. It is just east of New Riverside Village Development. It's south of SC 46, May River Road. I'll move on to the aerial of the same location. Project description and background. The properties were initially approved by Beaufort County and developed in accordance with the Beaufort County Zoning and Development Standards Ordinance. The properties contain approximately 98,000 square feet of existing buildings, and that includes an equestrian center, dormitory building, maintenance facility, multiple classrooms, and several accessory structures. Back on July 20 of 2010, Bluffton Town Council approved the annexation petition and conditionally approved the Tolfany PUD zoning map amendment and associated initial master plan. It was conditionally approved. They had asked that they held a couple of public meetings, and they did so when they came back in April of the next year. It was already renamed as Mindstream Academy PUD, and that was approved as presented. This is the subject property. This is the existing zoning. As you can see, it's PUD. So I'm going to go over the existing zoning and what's allowed in it now, and then I'll follow that with what the proposed zoning is, and then we'll open it up for the workshop discussion. Let me see if this, so this is the future development map that was included in the approved PUD. And what it described down here is the property. We got May River Road on your right, and this is the road that comes into the property. So north is headed to your right. The little graphic up above identifies phase 1, and then phase 2 is identified as undeveloped land, and then there's an existing residential parcel. Both phase 1 and this parcel were designated as developed land within the PUD. So that included the buildings and structures you have here, the pond outside of it, and the residential that was here. On this graphic, and I know it's hard to read all of this, but this is the undeveloped land future phase, as well as this piece, as well as adjacent to the buildings, as well as back here. And I can go back to this graphic whenever I need to. So this is the site data table that was also approved with it, and I'm not expecting you to be able to read this. I'm just going to clarify. The very top is calling out that residential parcel, and it's existing residential, and it's designated as no further development. That was how it was approved. There's no additional commercial allowed. There's no additional residential allowed on that parcel. And the parcel I'm referring to is this one. There's a home on it. This is Miss Mole's property, or Miss Mole's. There we go, Miss Mole's property. What is designated as phase 1 is existing development, and it was approved with no further development. And that's key, because that's the reason why we're here tonight. Oops, let me go in the correct direction here. And that would include the building and the pond down here as phase 1 development. What this was considered phase 1 complete. No additional development can happen within phase 1. There's future phases where additional development can happen. And that's what's shown down here. Phase 2, undeveloped land. What's allowed is 6,000 square feet per acre of commercial development, or 1 dwelling unit per acre of residential development. And so that would be the parcels that I've already called out up front, and here, adjacent to the buildings, and in the rear. So what is being proposed is the front 7 acres going from PUD to rural mixed use. The existing residential parcel going from PUD to agricultural AG zone district, and the rear also going to agricultural zone district. Here's a map with a slide with a lot going on, but basically on your left, well, initially, when this was approved, it was approved in the county. It mirrored when it was approved in the town. The land uses that were allowed mirrored the Pritchardville Community Preservation District. And subsequently after that, Beaufort County changed their CP districts when they brought in their community development code. And when they did, they had identified each of these preservation districts and said, what are they the equivalent of in the town? What they identified was T2 Rural, T2 Rural Center, and T3 Edge was the current zoning in the county that was the equivalent to the Pritchardville CP district. So they're identified here with the yellow arrows pointing to the list of zoning in Beaufort County. The list of zoning is going from the lowest intensity, such as preservation area and rural, to the higher intensity down here, neighborhood center commercial. On the right side, what you have is the town of Bluffton's zoning districts categorized in the same order, from lower intensity preservation ag to the higher intensity general mixed use and light industrial. What is requested is AG zoning and rural mixed use zoning. So the intent here is to show a slide that shows that through this rezoning, they're actually becoming there's less intense uses being allowed than there is in the PUD. We're up at the top of the scale at the lower intensity uses as the rezoning request, and in Beaufort County currently under the PUD, the equivalent zoning districts allow more intense uses. This is lot building standards that we can revisit, but the little stars that you see over here, AG and RMU, show the only type of lot types that are allowed in this district. It's very limited. For AG, it's extremely limited. For RMU, the lot types are smaller. These lot types are shown in this chart here: estate lot, large house lot, medium house lot, small mixed use lot, small commercial lot, and civic lot. And this points a little bit towards what you were talking about, Charlie, with your concerns about commercial up front. And then there's a parking that goes along with it. The civil use that's called out, the civic lot, that's a government-owned or operated building, structure, or land use for public purpose. So these are the limited lot types that can happen out of this whole list with the rezonings that we're discussing. This comparison table, definitely don't expect you to be able to read this. It was provided in the packet. The first column, well, I guess the second column, first column is a list of land use. The second column is what's allowed under the Mindstream PUD. Everywhere you see a letter, it's either permitted or conditionally permitted. The second is Town of Bluffton AG zoning. You can see that it's much more sparse with the uses, where there's a batch of uses under commercial services here. There's only one here. When you get over to the rural mixed use, a little bit more than the AG, but definitely less than the Mindstream PUD. And I can revisit this slide if you need me to. The next steps, there was a pre-application meeting back in July of 2023. Tonight, we're having the Planning Commission workshop. After this, we'll come back next month, and it'll be the Planning Commission public hearing and recommendation. You guys are a recommending board when it comes to this, and this will go to town council. Tentative dates, it would go to town council for the ordinance first reading on April 9, 2024. And then it would go back to town council for public hearing and ordinance second reading and final reading. And that would be in May of 2024. And I will just open this up for any questions you may have of the applicant. It's an open workshop. I don't know if Kevin wanted to add anything to this.
No, that was great.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions before we open it up? Go ahead and open it to the applicant. Nathan, if you want to speak to anything, feel free.
Sure. Hey, Nathan, civil engineering project. So Cornerstone Church bought this property to turn into their main church campus. As their operation has grown, they've run out of parking in downtown Bluffton, and they're looking for a bigger site to continue their expansion. This site was purchased maybe a year or two ago, January 2023. And per the current PUD, they are allowed to put the church. You can see some of the more intense density of commercial uses that are allowed. And what we've been going through is trying to amend the PUD. So anytime they want to put a shovel in the ground per the PUD, they have to come in front of you guys and amend it. So in order to ease future development and also to help the church get up and operational as of right now, we have worked with the development department to come up with rezoning to agricultural and then rural mixed use on the front piece, which mirrors the Palmetto Electric, or Dominion Energy, excuse me, property across the street. And that will allow for a small commercial component for maybe coffee shop or something along those lines. And I think the church has expressed a lot of interest in providing opportunities to bring the community on the site and kind of involve all the adjacent neighborhoods and development to enjoy this beautiful piece of property that is really well suited for their church operation.
Questions for Nathan or staff? I just had a simple, well, mine's very simple. The piece of property that's the residential component currently, that's part of Cornerstone property?
That's part of Cornerstone property.
So that person rents,
Well, no, excuse me, the small piece, it was gifted
That was
to
just
Ms.
part-
Mole as, by the previous property owner. She owns that property,
Okay,
but she
so
is tied to the
she's
PUD.
tied to the PUD, so this will help free her from the PUD, meaning would she have more opportunity to do things with her land?
Her density would increase from 1 residence to 2, and that's the max she could do on that property.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering, making sure she was independent of,
Hopefully.
like, this would help her as well.
Yes, and I talked with Ms. Mole. She had questions, concerns about it, and I was able to explain that. And then just that agricultural, now, I mean, she has no intentions to subdivide the property, but, you know, it would give her that ability to get
In
that
the future, something happens.
one more unit if she so chose.
Okay.
Well, along those lines, what about the other residents that have to access past Ms. Mole's property to get to their houses, or am I reading the map wrong?
There is a existing easement through the property, Meadow Lane, that will remain unchanged. There's a little bit of question as to whether that's tied to the PUD or public right of way. Per all the documents I've seen, and we've worked with the surveyor, this property has been somewhat of a black hole in terms of data, but we have data showing that that's part of the PUD. County and town of Bluffton information calls it a public right of way, so it will remain, as of right now, part of the PUD, or part of the agricultural zoning as an official easement.
The road will.
Road will, and it will also serve as utility corridor, which is.
Is that dirt or paved?
As of right now, it's dirt. The church is proposing a gravel or pavement surface cover as we value engineer this project. Church.
Have y'all talked to the neighbors, and what does everyone's feel about? Does it matter with the rezoning? Does anyone have any issues with?
As of right now, we have not, I haven't reached out. I'm not sure how much.
We haven't talked to we've introduced ourselves to the neighbors, but we haven't talked to them about the rezoning proposal.
I just didn't know if y'all heard from anyone either.
Obviously,
Yeah,
public
it would be
noticing.
250-foot radius for the next meeting, and also, there's also a public notice for when it goes to town council.
I just know that's always a big factor.
Yeah, and I went ahead and had staff take a sign and put it out there, just so that way, as people are driving by, they will see the big Z out there. And I don't think
I mean, we can do what you can do. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
I just know that's always a big question is
course.
the neighbors.
I think in terms of the neighbors to the west side, it provides a really good buffer from that high density New Riverside development that's going on over there. And should keep them feeling more of a rural feel back there.
Let's back up to a 10,000-foot view for a second. One of the things that we do as a town is we don't want to do spot zoning or individual zoning change. Can we speak to why this is even before us and why we're considering this versus, say, me wanting to change my zoning on my property? What is the benefit to the town?
We, when it first came in, let me see if I can get back. When they first came in and they wanted to do some improvements to the existing buildings, the approach that they took was to amend the PUD. The PUD is so specifically written that amending it was almost a strike through of everything in the PUD and redescribing it, because it was very specific to the use at that time. We went back and forth on it. We realized maybe a better approach, and it was recommended by the town, a better approach would be to rezone the property rather than to take a messy PUD and make it an equally or more messy PUD. And we'd still be stuck with a very specific PUD describing the process. We would be showing you strike-throughs on each of the pages. What's going to come out of this, if they get a rezoning approval, is we get to go to the UDO for our parking requirements, density requirements. It's a straightforward approach, and it's much cleaner for both the town and for the applicants, the developers.
You see why I asked that, is because that's
Does anybody else think of
what
it?
you put on us and we put on you, is that, and that answer makes sense, and it's defendable if
And it-
somebody comes with a single or two properties.
And this is less intense than other, we're going.
Well,
This is,
I'm more worried about spot zoning, that next
No,
piece of
yeah.
property.
that's understandable.
And it's not necessarily spot zoning, because there is a rural mixed use right across the street, so it would be in the same kind of vibe as the comprehensive plan.
I hear what you're saying, Nathan. I hear what you're saying, Nathan, but it kind of could be considered spot zoning. That's the whole thing. But there's a reason for this, and that's a reason I think most of us can hang our hats on, so.
And, obviously, this is just the informal portion of it. I don't even know if we provided the review criteria, just to list them in there, but
A little bit.
through the process, that's where we're digging deeper, and we'll provide all that information for you. So, as you move forward, making recommendations, you'll have those review criteria to base that decision on. Right. If you think of the growth framework map, this piece is kind of on the periphery for commercial development. So it is appropriate to have some commercial development. Also, you have a 7-acre piece right there I always equate the rural mixed use to like Cahill's property, where their restaurant is. It's meant to be a smaller design. Any development that would happen, the lot sizes in that table, we'll pull that table back up, it's really restricted. So a smaller lot forces you to have a smaller building. So any type of development that would happen there would have to meet those guidelines. And by putting it all in the UDO, it's clear moving forward.
And the rural mixed use would not allow for things like I hope I don't offend anybody here, but a Chick-fil-A or possibly a Starbucks.
Yeah, and there's actually a lot of uses in that use table right there that are currently allowed in that future development phases that are no longer allowed. So again, it is a down zoning in the sense of they have a less amount of uses. Yeah.
Well, you just know that my biggest nightmare is wherever Chick-fil-A decides to put their next building.
Yeah, well.
There's traffic issues, so, but no, I'm just, not that I hate their food, but, no, I said not that I hate their food, I like their food. Talk for a second, if you would, it looks like, and maybe it doesn't, but it looks like the roads at the back end of the property connect to the next door neighborhood, to Midway Farms, or do they not? Am I not seeing that right?
There is one property back there that uses the road.
It's kind of a patchwork of roads back there, but there is multiple access points.
Right.
They could also go up Stillwell if they wanted to.
The reason I'm asking, and this is usually later in this process anyways, is out of respect for the neighbors that live in Midway Farms, we don't necessarily want the people who are going to church snaking through Midway Farms to beat the traffic, if that makes sense. So that's just something to.
I would assume it would actually probably take longer.
Yeah, well, you can't access it.
Oh, you can't even access.
There's no access from Midway.
So someone might have made their own.
Yeah, that might
I
be.
know a couple of people back there, yeah.
Yeah.
Really have. Are there, and this is just a curiosity thing, are there plans to enclose that pavilion at some point and make that the main worship center?
That's
Is that what you
the
think?
primary objective.
That's all I had.
And this would be subject to still some stormwater review, so if we're gonna have a lot of parking, it's not gonna be all paved surfaces?
That's correct. We still have to be in compliance.
Come up to the mic, it's recorded.
Sir, we'd still be in compliance with Soloco with any new improvements to the site.
What about the 75% tree coverage? That applies? The stormwater?
I would assume so, yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's gonna be interesting.
Yes, sir. There's a lot of tree canopy out there right now.
Do you have any further information, discussion? It's early, guys.
Not a problem. Somebody losing the over-under?
Okay, well, then, I guess then we don't have an action.
Oh.
We're done with you.
All right.
Thank you. Good luck. See you the next time. Okay, so with that,
Make a motion.
I haven't even asked. I haven't even any discussion.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No.
No.
All in favor? Aye.
I think I got it.
Thanks. Thanks,
I think we
Gary.
got it, is right?
The discussion point was gonna be, should we
I
adjourn?
said 25.